Kaiser is off the chain. Everything is in one place for you. Your x-ray will be done there. The doctor will see you there. The labs are there for you. And then the nurses that work with you at Kaiser, they make you feel so at home. They're there to meet your needs. I would not be alive today if I had not had Kaiser Permanente. I feel really, really great knowing there's a place that I can go to make sure that I can maintain good health on a regular basis.
Every medical case is unique. Kaiser Foundation Health Plan, Atlantic Street, 2101 East Jefferson Street, Rockville, Maryland, 20852.
You are listening to New Theory Radio. Theory Radio.
Hello and welcome to another edition of New Theory Radio, here live on News Talk Saga 960 AM. My name is Nav Nanwa. I am your host, and this is the show where we theorize on all things arts and pop culture. Happy Father's Day to you and yours, especially if you're celebrating. It is my first Father's Day, so I'm very grateful to be celebrating this occasion. And we have a jam-packed show lined up for you this week. We're actually going to be talking about a father in particular, that is Drake. This past week was the 10-year anniversary of his debut album, Thank Me Later, which a lot of people think is quite the polarizing selection when you look at Drake's discography. So we dive a bit deep into this album and what it truly means to his legacy with a couple of key individuals we have joining me. He is a creative director for Creators at Play. He is one of the masterminds behind an awesome collective called 40 Ounce Heroes, and he's someone that's been on New Theory Radio before. It is my buddy Jawn, a true champion of the local I would say music and hip-hop scene. He joins me to share his perspectives on the album. As well, we are joined by TV producer Akilah Prendes. She'll be joining us as well to talk about the album, as both of these individuals will be participating in our pop culture panel. And then as well within our panel, we are also going to be talking about movie productions running again during this pandemic. So it was announced this week that Jurassic World Dominion, which is the movie starring Chris Pratt, will be resuming production next month in the UK. And apologies, I think you might hear my daughter in the background as she is currently having lunch as I'm doing this intro. But it is truly interesting to learn more about Jurassic World having its production resume during this pandemic, specifically in the UK, which was hit hard with the coronavirus. And it sounds like Universal Studios is taking every precaution known to man to keep the actual set safe. And considering both Jawn and Akilah have experience working on many different production sets, I thought it would be great to talk to them about this and kind of get their perspectives on whether or not they feel it is safe to move forward, and what they would like to see from a safety precaution standpoint when it comes to resuming these types of productions. As well, we are going to continue our NTR Spotlights, which is the segment where we highlight an organization or an artist that's truly moving the arts and culture scene forward, both here locally in Peel as well as across the world. This week, I'm super honored to be joined by singer-songwriter Nova Lush. Nova Lush is a fantastic singer who really specializes in amazing R&B. The R&B is very reminiscent to that of the 90s. It has a little bit of neo soul in it as well. She stops by to talk about her album Love Hard, which I urge you all to go check out. I was listening to it all week, and it truly is quite the vibe if you're looking for a nice little background vibe while you're going about your day. And we talk about many different things. We talk about her process, how she got introduced to music, which a lot of it was rooted in her family. We also talk about one of her songs going viral in the Ukraine, which I thought was fascinating. Is literally, she had a song here, and she managed to get it on a couple of websites, and all of a sudden the Ukraine was bumping it, which is fantastic. And then we also talk about her using her platform to speak out against racism and injustice, which she's been doing a fantastic job, especially lately with everything that's been going on. All this and more in this week's edition of New Theory Radio, so keep it locked. We are going to take a quick commercial break, and then it's time for our pop culture panel with both Jawn and Akilah as we dissect Drake's Thank Me Later 10 years later here on New Theory Radio on Saga 960 AM.
You are listening to New Theory Radio Pop Culture Panel.
And we are back here on New Theory Radio, here live on News Talk, Saga 960 AM. My name is Nav Nanwa, I am your host, and this is the show where we theorize on pop culture and arts. And it's about that time for our pop culture panel of the week, where we discuss some of the biggest news and stories in the world of media and entertainment. And joining me this week, I got two amazing individuals. I'll start with the person who's on my left. He is someone that I'm very familiar with. He actually appeared on New Theory Radio in its infancy about, I would say, about a year ago. He is a creative director, someone who runs multiple different initiatives, one being Creators at Play, one being 40 Ounce Heroes. He's also a new dad, just like me, so I'm sure we'll be sharing some more stories over the next hour or so during this pop culture panel as we head into Father's Day. But I'm excited to have him back. He is very well connected within the scene here locally, and he's also a rapper. I'm not going to say former rapper, because I know that he doesn't want to hear that, because I feel like one day we're going to get that comeback album. But it's my buddy Jawn Taboika. Jawn, thanks so much for coming back to New Theory Radio, man. Appreciate it.
Nav, I had such a blast the first time. I just came right back.
Yeah, man. Yeah,
thanks for having me.
I had to bring you back, because it was a fascinating conversation over a year ago, and I had to also not mention the fact that you're a former rapper, because I know you still got bars in you.
I'll show you on the streets, bro. Let's go.
And then joining us is I'm going to read her bio, because she worked really hard on this one. She is a post-production coordinator at Cineflix Productions. You'll know her work from such shows as the History Channel's American Pickers, as well as Animals at Work and Red Hot Design. She loves to travel, with her favorite spot being New York. She's a big fan of Sour Patch Kids and Purple Skittles. She loves old cartoons, and she's one of the original OVO every year ticket holders. Probably not for this year.
No, I won't talk about it. It's fine.
Of the quarantine. But I also just found out, because she did a bit of a deep dive in the New Theory archives this week, that she's a huge wrestling fan. So I love that. It is Akilah Prendes joining us. Akilah, thanks so much for being forced into doing this.
No way. Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited. Super nervous, but super excited.
Oh, don't be. You being a yearly OVO attendee is definitely going to help us with our first topic that I want to dive right into. This past week, actually, was the 10-year anniversary of Drake's stellar debut, or not so stellar, depending on where you sit on that scale, Thank Me Later, which was his major label debut on Cash Money. It followed So Far Gone, which was obviously his breakout mixtape that really put him on the map. And I must say, as this anniversary kind of came and went this week, there was a lot of sort of conversation around Thank Me Later and where it sits in Drake's discography, and just what the true impact of this album is. And even, just a few months ago, or I would say towards the end of last year, Drake did a Rap Radar podcast, and he had mentioned that he felt numb throughout this entire process when he was making this album, because he really felt the major label pressure when he was putting this together. So I wanted to dive a bit deep into Thank Me Later, and I wanted to talk to both you guys about it. Akilah, you being a diehard Drake fan, Jawn, you being someone who's very well connected in the Toronto sort of GTA hip hop scene, about where you think this album sort of sits with you when it comes to its place in music, specifically Canadian hip hop. Because I must say, this is probably one of the biggest Canadian hip hop records, and that really started, Drake's ascent at being at the top of his game, which he currently is right now. when you look at the music industry. So Akilah, because you're an OVO Fest OG, I thought it'd be good to start with you and maybe take me back to June 2010 and when you probably went to HMV to go pick up that holographic cover of Drake's face.
I did not.
Oh, you did not? Okay,
no.
So what's your relationship with this album?
So, yeah, I know, right? No, so I actually didn't buy this one myself. My best friend at the time, she's obsessed with him beyond any comparison. She was one of those, like, I'm going to be in there front and center. And I ended up, like, because we were together all the time, I just didn't even realize that I didn't have it for the longest time because I'd heard it repeatedly through her. So I didn't grab it off the jump. But I remember when, like, his single dropped, a friend of ours thought he was, like, bringing us breaking news. He was like, I got this guy. I heard him on the radio. Everybody's going to love him, guys. Like, get in on the ground floor, so to speak. And we were like, okay, whatever, like, not thinking much of it. And he was very, very emphatic. And sure enough, he was right. But he, like, when that dropped, it was like, I don't even know how to explain it. I can't express to you how many times I had to hear Best I Ever Had on the radio, no matter what channel you turned to. It was just like, it stopped on one channel and then you went to the other one and sure enough, there it was. And I was with my family and we went somewhere and, like, just getting in and out of the car, I think we were taking my brother for something for soccer. And I'm not kidding, every time we got back in the car, whatever channel we went to, it was on. I was like, I feel like it's following me. I don't know what's happening. Like, you couldn't get away from it. And for the first bit, you didn't want to. You're like, yes, again, this is great. And then you're just, like, inundated with it. So you don't get a chance, I found at that time, to, like, sit with some stuff because, you're just bombarded with it. But that album and that summer literally go hand in hand because I think I saw him twice that summer. Once at, like, Ottawa's, what is it called? Ottawa's Blues Fest, I think it's called, or Jazz. That, and he was, I think he was the headliner for one of the days. And just seeing how many people there, like, had no clue who he was, what he was doing up there, like, just no cares in the world for the fact that this guy that is now who he is now is standing in front of them, singing his songs, and they're just like, oh, just roaming around. My friend's, like, crying. She's so excited. And I'm just like, what is happening? Like, it felt like you were seeing something and you just weren't sure, like, is this going to be that big? Like, are we doing this? Or is this going to be a story you tell in a couple years? Like, yeah, remember that guy who, like, was supposed to be the thing and it didn't happen?
Yeah.
It's crazy that it's been 10 years, right? And like, I would say my experience with the album's a little bit different. Like, to Nav's point, I was in a Best Buy parking lot. I think this was the first album I ever bought in Best Buy. Don't know.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Which one? Do you remember which Best Buy in Saga?
It was the one in Etobicoke, just near 427 in Queensway, my hood.
Okay. Represent.
I remember buying the album and being a huge Drake fan before this. I was on MySpace. Okay. So Far Gone was like the first EP before it was, like, re-released as a commercial thing. Yeah. It was really great. Like, so much promise. You listen to this and you were like, this is a new artist with something to say, something fresh. I was really happy to take the next steps in, like, watching his career. And this was his debut album, quote unquote, right?
Right.
I don't say I like the album per se, but I will say that this is probably the most thorough Drake release.
Yeah.
And when I say thorough, I mean, like, it's showing off all the things that he can do, especially from a pop sense. I came into this album as, like, I love rap. I want to hear some rapping. And I was so disappointed. There are, like, tracks like Karaoke and Show Me a Good Time. And, like, even the joint with Jeezy was like, really? You had Jeezy on your record and this is what you're putting out?
With the Aaliyah sample in the beginning,
Right? The Alicia Keys feature.
Yeah, Fireworks,
Fireworks.
Yeah, right. And we learned that he later wrote for Alicia Keys. And, like, I think if you look at this album as almost like an almanac for his career, it says a lot. You listen to the track with Jay-Z, Light Up, and, like, Jay's giving him the 101 on how to be a rapper. He's like, first they're going to do this, then they're going to do this.
Yeah.
And you, like, what? like 10 years later, it's like he beefed with Meek, he beefed with, like, you can, everything he talked about, you're like, wow. So it was like a coming of age. It was pre-Beard Drake, you know, it was like a young man who was like enthralled with power, enthralled with girls, and really wanted to just show that off. And you can hear the pressure, though.
Well, even the article that I flipped you guys from the NME talks about, well, if you look at Drake 10 years later, and he is sort of the epitome of popular music, and he's always, you know, there's always memes coming out of Drake now when it comes to anything that he does. He's very adaptable and he likes to jump on trends. Like, you look at his last mixtape, like, it's very much influenced by the UK drill movement. And you compare that to this album, it's, to your point, John, I totally agree. Like, I think this is I think this is almost like the Drake greatest hits in regards to what he's good at and just being able to kind of put that together. But I remember when this came out 10 years ago, So Far Gone was on everyone's radar. Like, people were just obsessed with this R&B sort of hip hop sound that he was bringing to the table. But then I remember when, after Best I Ever Had, and I think Kanye had directed the video, and that video had mixed reviews, but then he dropped Over, and people, like, were very confused about Over. Like, there was people that just did not understand the song, and I don't know, it felt like he like, the follow-up, like, the standard was so high that no matter what he was putting out, whether it was Over, whether it was Fancy, whether it was Find Your Love too, which was also produced by Kanye, like, no one was really satisfied. Like, was that just me, or were you guys feeling the same way?
I wouldn't say, I get that idea, like, no one's satisfied, but, like, I think that he did set the bar high, and I think once he did, I think people made an opinion on him from that one song. Yeah. And then just, like, whatever, like, if you were with it, everything he put out, for the most part, you were with it. You were just like, yeah, this is another one, another hit, love it. If you didn't, or had felt some type of way about Best I Ever Had, you were judging harshly from there on. So if there was one thing that you know, if there was a little bit of this that you didn't like, or a little bit of that, you emphasize that harder. And of course, we were also just going into the full-on social media where everyone can now say whatever they want. So, like, one song, I kind of didn't like this, turns into, like, who's this guy think he is? I don't even know what this is. It's just like, oh my God, like, it's one album. We've got 2 songs. We've decided he's trash. Okay, cool. That's good to know. Like, it goes so hard from that point on. And I didn't, like, saying 10 years, like, over and over again. Good Lord. Like, it just feels, how is it 10 years? But, like, that time period also really was a jump off point to where we are. Like, everyone has, you know, their MySpace, Facebook, whatever it is, and has their own thought on it and has an opinion piece on everything. And I definitely, like, as someone who, I love him, but, like, I am nowhere near as much love as some people have. Yeah. To see how, like, there are people would be affected by the fact that you didn't like something of his. And I'm like, what's that about you? Like, okay, I didn't know you were, you know, his number one fan club leader. That's fine. But I definitely think, like, and because he got so many early endorsements, like, that album. Yeah. That album is, you've got, like you just said, you've got Jay-Z, Alicia Keys, Wayne. Kanye production, Lil Wayne. All on that one album. Yeah. We're going to be like,
I think there was No ID production on there too.
No ID productions are on there.
Big games on your first album. People have expectations. And I thought they were met fine. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's a first album. I liked it. I'm one of those people who might not look at it as critically as some other people. And that's fine. I'm, you know, the social person of enjoying it. That's okay. But, like, having those names on there is going to put you in a place, it feels like, that, like, you've got all these people behind you. I expect this and nothing less.
Yeah. Yeah, and I agree.
Well, how would you compare the album? Because I think that's one of the big things, right? Is that we're 10 years later. He's been on top for 3 sets of 3 years, in his words. You know, where do we see this album in terms of where it fits in with the others? Not only just from, like, this one's better and this one's, you know, but more so, like, the listening experience. Because I look at something like More Life, the Playlist album, right? Yeah. It was curated by Nico, I think. Yeah. Or something in the OVO camp.
Yeah, someone from his team.
Versus this album, Thank Me Later, that we're talking about, which was, in Drake's words, like a lot of label pressure and a lot of commercial side of it.
Mm-hmm.
And when you listen to the two projects, and I haven't listened to them back to back, but I've listened to them both a lot. The experience of something like More Life, there's just a vibe. There's just, even because the music is different, sure, but like the way that the songs go into each other, there's interludes. Nothing feels forced about it. Some of it doesn't feel like the best music, but nothing feels forced.
Yeah.
Whereas Thank Me Later comes across like Drake trying to drop the Black Album on his first album.
Yeah, it's very industry, and I'm glad you brought that point, John, because to me, a lot of people, when they think about that classic Drake album, Take Care and Nothing Was the Same, or even if you're reading this, It's Too Late, like those seem to be the three that come up the most. And to your point around a vibe, all three of those albums have a specific vibe, while this album feels like a mixed bag.
Yeah, just like it's like it's like just a drop of hits and features, which is fine. It's but I do agree with the point of the vibe, because I remember More Life coming out, and like, I mean, I happen to also have been just going on vacation literally the day it came out, so I legitimately
all the
very perfect. I legitimately was listening to it like on a beach at one point, and I was like, oh yeah, this is it right here. Like I can like, and it felt even. The mood of the album was reflected at the time of where I was, but that feeling stayed in the way that album played out. And I do like pointing that out is illuminated to me, because you play Thank Me Later. It's all like, it all sounds great, but definitely the feeling is I'm putting it back to memories at that time versus something like More Life, where I'm literally like living the album, if that makes sense. Feeling of the album.
Yeah, because of when it dropped and how you were living at the time, right?
But but also even like after the fact, like I can put that on now and still be like, that's the vibe I'm supposed to get from this. Like that's what I'm feeling. Yeah. Whereas to your point for Thank Me Later, I don't necessarily play it, top to bottom, play it through and still feel something like that. There's no feeling through the album. It's just like bangers. Take these. Here we go. Like, that's a very good point. I didn't think.
I feel like also, like, if you guys ever been the new kid in high school, did you ever have to like come to a new school and everyone already had their friends and you're like the new kid?
Not in high school, but I did switch schools in grade school. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely in grade school. Yeah.
In grade school, okay. Well, I had the experience in grade school and in high school, and I'm just kind of like looking at what he would have been like, this new rapper coming into this quote unquote rap high school. Where all the cool kids are there, like Jay-Z and Lil Wayne and all, and he's trying to impress them. He's trying to fit in. He's like, look what I can do. I can throw a football. Like he's trying to be on the chest.
He's like a foreign exchange student because he's from Canada, right?
Yeah, exactly. That even accentuates it more because he's not even from their country, right? Yeah. He's this Canadian, half black, half Jewish kid. Like he's trying his best to fit in so well on this album. And the problem is we can all see it. Like you can see that new kid trying to do everything, right? And you're like, man, he's so extra. Yeah. Man, he's trying too hard. Why can't he just be himself, right? And then 10 years later, we're seeing his albums come out, and you're seeing pieces of him. Views was so dark.
Oh,
right?
So dark.
Scorpion is like him really saying, crap. Yeah. I'm going to start doing other things too, and watch, I'll do them both. Yeah. And I'll do it the way I want to do it, right? And that vibe and that like ethos that he has on these new records versus this one in particular, Thank Me Later, is so different. It's like you can see the effects of power, money, drugs, and everything over his records, and like where his comfort level is in those things now.
Hey, John, were you making music during this time when Thank Me Later came out?
I was, bro. My first album actually dropped in 2009.
So, because I always find there to be an interesting relationship with the time where Drake was on the rise to just the state of Toronto/Canadian hip hop. And I remember there was a lot of people when this album was about to come out where you almost had people that were either, to Akilah's point, fully supporting Drake, but then you had this other group, and maybe I'm looking too deep into it, but you had this other group that was maybe a bit wary of this and maybe felt like Drake was almost trading in what he, his background just to get in with sort of mainstream culture.
Yeah.
What was your thoughts on that?
Because I have this one experience that I'll never forget. I was at this show downtown. It was at El Macombo before they closed and renovated it. It was like, if you don't know El Macombo on Spadina, it's a dope place. But there was
bringing it back, I think, too.
I think it is back now.
Okay, cool.
Or I mean, COVID is kind of probably. But I remember going to a Jay Dilla celebration concert. So I don't remember the promoter at the time, but they brought all these Toronto artists together to perform Jay Dilla tracks live. And it was like such a cool event. There wasn't a lot of people there. And if anyone's familiar with the El Macombo, you like kind of walk in and then you walk around and you can see the bar from one side. And there's like these booths around the side. I remember this one night I was at the show and I was leaving the show to go outside. And there was a young guy sitting in a booth by himself on his phone. I'm like, "Are you Drake?" He looks up, "Hey man, what's going on?" Back to his phone. No one was around him. No one was bugging him. Nobody cared, right?
Wow, crazy.
I thought that was so fitting. And that was probably like 2009, maybe a little bit before then. I probably forgot the date in my head specifically. But that was just like a hip-hop event where all these hip-hoppers were together. I'm pretty sure Tona was performing. Atom Bomb, the SARS guys, like all the Toronto guys kind of came together to celebrate Dilla, who's such a huge influence on our city's music. That Detroit sound has just like infiltrated a lot of that generation, the early 2000s. And I guess Drake was invited too, and he did a performance, and nobody really cared, right? And to your point, Nav, there was this divide when he was coming up of people that either were like super supportive and really liked his stuff, when there was people that just kind of wrote him off as this wannabe, right? This guy that was just trying to take advantage of his high connections in the music industry, whether it be producers or rappers or whatever the case. But I've always been a huge supporter of his stuff because ever since Comeback Season, where he had rappers like Elzai and Fonte and like some other heads, and I'm like, wow, this guy's like really knows it. And that was before, that was during Little Brother Come Up, and that was during Detroit really making a lot of noise in the 2000s. So I will always have a lot of love for Drake because of that. And I think his music is going to come full circle one day, but he's not there yet.
It's funny you mentioned Comeback Season and Room for Improvement. Like those mixtapes obviously don't get the same notoriety as So Far Gone, but if you actually do a deep dive into that era of Drake, when I guess he was transitioning out of Degrassi and was just making music for fun, you can see that he was heavily rooted in conscious hip hop. Like he was heavily rooted in that Jay Dilla Little Brother style,
the conscious kind of thing.
And I also remember, I think this was when Take Care came out. I remember he had come out with an article where, like, Take Care, I think I think for him, I think is going to be, his album. Like when you think about Drake's legacy, like I think Take Care more so than this album will be something that people really look at as that's the legendary Drake album, and then everything else just kind of came after it. I remember there was an article where he was saying that he really wanted Fonte on the album, but just timing didn't work out, and he was like super upset by it because he really wanted Fonte on a couple of records. And that to me just showed that he has a lot of respect for just skills and for the actual music aspect of it, and he wasn't simply just trying to jump on a wave and trying to maximize it, right? And I've always kind of given Drake credit for that, and you see glimpses of that every now and then, and even with the way he's sort of incorporating the drill sound and sounds from Afrobeats and even all that. Like he has that mentality of wanting to pay homage, which doesn't feel like a parody to me. But yeah, I found it interesting because this album to me, when it came out, reminded me of when Get Rich or Die Trying came out with 50 Cent, where everybody was just like all eyes on this guy. What are the first week numbers going to be? What's the hype going to look like? And it added that extra layer of intrigue was the fact that he was local. And like seeing it in our backyard was like crazy. Like it was crazy to me.
I think we put on for him heavy, like the radio stations here and that kind of thing. It's like you just wanted him so badly to succeed and like show out, so that it was like, see, he's one of ours. Like, look at what we can do. Because there's been enough people from the city that have had music out, and it's kind of one or two songs may have caught on in other places, but like this felt like the one to be like, okay, this is it. Like, we are gonna make a name, and like people just have to attach to it because for whatever reason, people talk about it all the time, whether it's in music or in sports for our teams and stuff. It's like you want the validation. So,
yeah.
No matter what you pretend, like you don't want it, it's fine. We can do for ourselves. And then one station down there gets it, and you're like, see, look, we did it. It's just like it's like you say you don't. It's the same thing with the teams. It's like, we don't need you to put us on TV, and then like they get a national game, and you're like, you're gonna see. Finally, we deserved it. It's like it's like they can't help it. So I think it was just like you just wanted it to like be as great. So even if it wasn't perfect, you still wanted it to pop off.
I had friends at clubs that would say that they're Drake's cousin. Like it was so local that people were thinking like, hey, I'm Drake's cousin, and like they'll just make up a story, or maybe they've similar to your story, John, maybe they crossed paths with Drake like randomly at an event.
Sure. Yeah.
And all of a sudden they started using that for validation. And Akilah, I think you bring up a good point, because before this, or even before So Far Gone, I think the closest that we got to validation was what, Dangerous with Cardi and Akon?
Yeah, I think so. That I can remember anyway. Yeah.
You're talking about like Canadian validation in general?
Well, in regards to like that crossover to US. Yeah.
That's one of the bigger ones I can think of. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. I just think I guess you can't help it, even though you don't want to like rely on that, so to speak. It's like, it just puts a little feather in your cap, I guess, when they're just like, see, we're playing it too. And then you're like, we knew him first. It's just, he's one of ours. And I'm like, okay, guys, calm down. But yeah, no,
I think one of the most exciting things is just to watch his progression. I think I mentioned this, but his involvement with the Raptors and like doing things for the city. He's got the key to the city, or whatever that means, right? Yeah. He's doing a lot more than just making music. And I think as artists kind of pass this 10-year hump, because it's not normal, right? There's not a lot of artists that last more than a decade. There's a few, and there's quite a few actually, but they're great, right? And or they end up getting canceled later on, and we try to forget about them. It's just a fine line for this longevity thing in this music biz. So I'm really curious where these next 10 years are going to go. 3 albums later. Yeah. Where is Drake going to be? Is he still going to be making albums? Is he going to take this OVO thing and actually sign some local rappers for once? Where is he actually going to go with this?
Yeah, no, I agree. Are there any standouts on this album that you guys even go back to now?
Yeah, like in the loop of the playlist, your gym playlist or whatever. It's like, there's a couple that when they pop up, I'm like, oh yeah, that works. It still feels good. But even like when we got the topic that we were going to bring it up, and I went back and I was just like, there's some of them that even just like the open of the song, I just remember certain things, like and especially I think because I was at that first OVO and he played obviously a bunch of these songs, I can remember like when he played Fireworks and the little fireworks are going off and we're all just like, I can't believe this big thing is happening here. And then of course he brought out other people. So you're like, this is real. Like the album comes out. It's like, okay, good songs, a couple features, whatever. But when that person is able to bring all of that here, you're like, okay, this is a big deal.
That was my biggest concert regret, not going to that first OVO. And I could have gone too.
I literally went up to my friend. I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know it was coming up or anything. And a person at her work knew someone in music and had brought it up to her. And she mentioned it to me and she was like, I kind of want to go. And I was like, okay, but like, how? It's tomorrow. And she was like, no, it's okay. I'll find. She like kind of Kijiji-'d it, found tickets. And we legit met some guy who was selling them at Square One on the Sunday at like noon. And I remember like my mom's driving us home from church. And I'm like, yes. So I guess we're going to a Drake concert tonight. And she was like, okay. cool. And I was like, no, literally, like when we get home, she's coming to pick me up and we're leaving. And we bought them for like $50 off this guy. And legit,
they were so cheap. Like I remember, like my best friend at the time worked at BlackBerry, and BlackBerry was the sponsor. And he messaged me. He's like, "Hey, I can get tickets to this OVO Fest if you want." And I think I like totally just big leagued it, and I was like, whatever, whatever. At that time, like, Thank You Later had just come out for a couple of months, and I was like, okay, cool. I don't need to see it perform live. And then on Twitter, I remember it was Hustle Girl. Hustle Girl was like tweeting out who the special guests were, and then when you hear about Eminem and Jay-Z, you're like, what?
I didn't know until we were in the we were in the amphitheater area. We weren't in the stadium part yet, and people were murmuring and talking. And my friend and I are just standing there. We're kind of like, I can't believe we just randomly showed up here. Like, we have no idea. You just saw him. We just had gone to Blues Fest like the month before.
Yeah,
you just saw him. Why are we here again? And she's like, it's fine, whatever. I hear there's supposed to be other people, without knowing who they were. So we're now hearing people murmuring about Jay-Z, and I'm like, don't play with me. Like, don't toy with my emotions. I will not accept this. So I legitimately was like, I'm not going to believe this. I'm not even going to just ignore them. Ignore them. And Eminem this and that, Rick Ross that. And we're just like, what are these? Now we're just saying names. Like, what is happening? So I think when Rick Ross came out, we were like, oh, okay. Like, there's plausibility here. This could be a thing. And I will not forget when Jay-Z came out, I legitimately lost my marbles. I was like, he's like, play the song The City Deserves. And we're all like, yeah, best I ever had. And he's like, no. And then DJ stops to play Run This Town. And I legitimately almost fell over. I was like, no. It's happening. Eminem comes out. And that was like, okay, this guy can make this happen on his first album. This seems important. It seems like a big deal.
It was like a New York City style concert in Toronto.
Yeah, it was like literally Summer Jam.
Yeah.
At the amphitheater. It was crazy.
John, do you have any thoughts? Were you at OVO Fest, John?
No, I've never been to an OVO Fest. The only time I was at quote unquote OVO Fest, I was shooting for Manifesto TV, and we were doing this pilot show called One Mic, and we were just interviewing people outside OVO. So that's the closest I've ever gotten.
Wow.
I've gone every year after the first year, because I totally big leagued the first year and didn't go, but then I went every year. 2015 I got fake tickets, so I didn't get a chance to get inside, and that was the Meek Mill year.
No.
And then he didn't do it last year. Like, there was no OVO last year, and then there won't be an OVO this year, and this year probably would have been huge because 10 years.
Yeah, I think I definitely, like, of all the times he'd noted that, like, there was one year he closed out and was like, see you guys next year at the Sky Dome or whatever. And we were like, oh, like, that's going to be huge.
I'm surprised he never did that.
That did not happen.
I remember that year too. And everyone was like, that was when Nothing Was the Same was out. I think so. I think so, yeah. Already you're like, okay, he's a couple albums in, he is a big star.
Yep.
Like, he could probably, I think now the Sky Dome's a no-brainer for him.
Yeah, and I think at that point we were so excited because, like, obviously the popularity of the event is getting bigger and bigger. Getting tickets was harder and harder. So in our minds, everyone's like, okay, there'll be more tickets for more people to come. He can do more, like, cool shit in there. It's bigger or whatever. But just the idea that more people and, like, a bigger feel of the space. And then I think the one year, either that year or the year after, he had it at the ACC, and we were like, this is not the same. This is not the Sky Dome.
It didn't feel like OVO.
Crammed. I was like, my brother and I think it was like, there was probably like 5 of us who went that year. My brother and I just remember we both talked about it recently, where we legit, because of the tickets we got, we were so high up. And because you've got the railing, and if you've gone to a bunch of Raptors game, that feeling of like being so high up, everyone's moving around and jumping. It was just like, this is not the same. Please take us back to where we were, or take us to the Sky Dome. Those are the two options. But it just didn't feel the same at all. But no, I think this year would have been like pretty monumental if he was able, like, obviously, pandemic aside, if he was able to pull off some of those bigger names again for the, like you said, like the 10 years, I think it would have been pretty monstrous. I wonder if he's still going to try. I mean, it'll be 11, but I wonder if he's still going to try something.
Yeah, I feel like, especially coming out of COVID, I could see something big happening.
I think a lot of people are going to try to do some big stuff after COVID for sure.
Totally. John, do you want to close out this topic? Any final thoughts? Actually, what do you think this album's legacy is on Toronto hip hop?
This album is going to, you know how you know the saying that the winner always writes history?
Yeah.
I feel like, with everything that's happened in the city, where everything's gone, this album is going to be looked to as a touchstone, more so than it should be. I don't like to use the word overrated, because I don't think it was rated very high to begin with. But I think just like everything we're talking about, how it was this Canadian guy bringing the U.S. to Canada and fitting in with the U.S. and all their artists. I think this album is going to be looked at as a way for Drake to rediscover himself, maybe in a couple years, where he can listen to songs like "Find Your Love" and be like, "Wow, that was a young me working with my idol, who I now have the biggest beef with and can't even say each other's name."
Yeah.
Right? Like,
It'll become your rival.
That's happened. And he directed his first music video, or his biggest music video.
I did want to move on to another topic that I thought would be very noteworthy on this pop culture panel, considering both your backgrounds in production. Universal announced that Jurassic World Dominion, which is the third Jurassic World, or I would say the sixth Jurassic Park movie, is going to be the first major studio movie back in production, sort of amidst this pandemic. Production is slated to take place again in July in the UK, and they've detailed safety protocols. And again, this movie stars Chris Pratt and Bryce Dallas Howard. Wanted to get both of your thoughts on this, being that, Jawn, you are a videographer, creative director. Akilah, you work in TV production. It seems like now we're in this COVID, and again, I hate to say this, but I feel like it's exactly what it is. Like, we're in this sort of COVID fatigue, where now people want to, despite what the WHO and what sort of the CDC is telling us, people want to now try to move forward in this new world, and they want to be able to, do things that they were doing before, but obviously taking in the right safety protocols. And, the fact that sports are coming back, the fact that, pro wrestling has been going on for the last little bit, the UFC is back at it. To me, it was going to be just a matter of time before we started to see, movie productions continue. So would love to get both your thoughts on this. Like, how do you feel about the fact that movies are now going to be looking to start production again, and the fact that Jurassic World will be starting production in the UK, which was an area that was hit hard with COVID. Is there anything that concerns you about this? And maybe Akilah, will begin with you.
Yeah, sure. It was inevitable, but it's still, slightly concerning. It's a hard thing to do, especially on a big budget project like that, because there's a lot of people, there's a lot of moving parts. So even adhering to protocols that they're going to have in order, there's going to have to be accountability and people in place to make sure some of that stuff happens. Because like you said, they want to do this. COVID fatigue is a very good term for it, because it's like you feel like, how long are we going to have to do this? How long are we going to have to wait? Like, we've got things in place. There's money behind it, lots of money behind it. And there's no viable way, because there's no end in sight, so to speak. There's no viable way for all of this stuff to just not happen. There's too much money behind it. So I get that. And some of the protocols that they've come out with, it's the best they can do. They make sense. But a lot of that stuff that has a lot of extras and a lot of people, I don't know how they're going to do some of that stuff. There's literally going to be technological ways they can, but you're going to lose a lot in the feel of some of that stuff, because you're not going to be able to just have 300 people meander around or run in for some scenes or whatever. It's going to feel weird, but it was bound to happen. I'd be interested to see how, if we ever get word of how the production is going and how they feel the new protocols affect how they're doing stuff. the time it's going to take and stuff like that, because it's just everything's going to take that much more attention and care, because like people's health should be the number one priority. Mm-hmm. So like, how do you go about certain day-to-day stuff, whether it's catering, whether it's makeup, all that stuff? I'd be interested to see how the production feels like it's going in that first couple of weeks, because I know they probably don't have a lot left, because I think they'd already started. And I wonder how many people will look to that production going forward for all the other stuff that's been put on hold and hasn't even started yet, quite frankly.
Yeah, it seems like a test and learn type situation. And according to this Deadline article, the safety measures include, check this out, the commission of a private medical facility called Your Doctor to manage the entire production's medical needs.
I love it.
COVID training for all cast and crew, on-site doctors, nurses, and isolation booths. 150 hand sanitizer stations. So in case you're worried about 100, they're going to have 150. Nightly antiviral fogs. More than 1,800 safety signs put up around Pinewood, which I guess is where they're filming.
Their production studio, yeah.
And green zones for shooting, cast, and crew. John, you're more so familiar with, and again, these are the summer times, a busy time for you guys when it comes to doing festivals and all that. What's your thoughts on these safety measures that are being taken?
You know, it's funny because as the whole world is opening up again, and this goes across any industry, we're talking specifically about, the film industry, which is its own beast in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. I remember when I first came into the industry, I did a lot of like just shadowing on sets and being a part of different productions just to learn, right? And the amount of people and the speed at which things happen and the close quarters of everything from the craft table to where your talent is, all of these things. I mean, I haven't been on a Hollywood production size budget like this, but I imagine those are going to be massive challenges, right? Mm-hmm. If Universal up my boy Star-Lord, I'm going to be cheese, man. don't play with me.
Even though he makes me angry a lot of the time, yes, I agree.
I mean, since Parks and Rec, I've loved Chris Pratt. I was just surprised to see him as a superhero, but
hey, it works.
It works, right? Way better than Jack Ryan. But anyways, I'm just hating. Sorry. The whole way that they're going about this on paper looks great, right? Mm-hmm. Everything you've listed out now, all the sanitizing, Your Doctor, they've really stepped it up as they need to. I'm just putting myself in the brain of somebody that would be on set, maybe a script supervisor. You know what I mean? Somebody that's like not high end, like on camera, that we have to, they probably treat like white glove treatment sort of thing.
Yeah.
But every like normal human being, a union member that's part of this production, I wonder how they feel, because they've been quarantined for months. They probably have that fatigue, right? They want to be out there. They're tired of being in the four walls of their house or being limited by what they can do. So here's a chance for them to get back in. It might be a little overzealous. I'm happy that it's kind of happening with this Jurassic World, Jurassic Park, the sixth movie of it, because the stakes are really low. I don't think there's much that they have to do to make a successful film. Whereas if this was like a Sundance new actor kind of like, we're seeing where this goes, like Moonlight, for instance. I don't think Moonlight would be filming right now.
Yeah.
Because of the risk associated and the budgets needed to comply with the health concerns. Mm-hmm. I mean, I've worked on sets, everything from, just managing crews to filming, like director of photography. And everybody needs to be on the same page. So with the fact that there are asymptomatic people with COVID, one bad apple could ruin this whole bunch, right? One person who didn't know they had it, and they're doing tests like when they're leaving the country, when they're coming to the country, when they're on set. There's a lot of testing going on. But as we all know, that's not 100%. So, where would the risk lie ultimately? Is it the employees? Is it the people that are on the production themselves? Is it the stars? Is it the Universals and the Warner Brothers of the world? Are they at risk? I don't think so. I think it's like you and me. It's every person that's on the set that has to worry about not only their lives, but what they could possibly bring home to their families.
Yeah, that's where like insurance comes in. And I think that's where a lot of productions are going to find themselves. either being held up or like getting every dot, cross, T, everything. Like you can't take, there's going to be people who just don't want to do it. So it's like, you have to, I guess, ensure to them that you're legitimately looking out for them and will take care of them if something happens, because it might just be time missed where like you have to stay in your quarantine and then maybe you come back and you're good. But like people are obviously being hospitalized for this. Like it's different for everybody. And the insurance on that, I don't know how they're determining like how much they want to be liable for stuff. But like in this instance, like in this production, and I'm, with a big company like that, they can afford, I mean, we don't know what their terms are, but they can afford to take care of these people should something like that happen, however big or small. Whereas a smaller production is going to get held up because who's going to pay for stuff? Like the stuff you pointed out costs a lot of money and they can do that, but who's going to do that on a smaller production? They're not getting your doctor coming in on $1 million budget versus $100 million budget. So I don't know. That's what I'm sure about.
No, I definitely agree. I think it's, and again, I think it's eye-opening, and there's probably unions involved in this too, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Massive. Yeah.
Yep.
Crazy.
It's just still, it's like, you're speaking on one side and then the other side, like, where do you meet in the middle? And as John pointed out, like, does everybody under that feel good about it? Unlikely. But how many people feel comfortable with it? Because, a lot of people have been out of work for a long time. A lot of people are going to be willing to put themselves in situations strictly because there is no income. Like, I can't live like this forever. Mm-hmm. I have to go back to work.
Yeah.
In doing so, I'm possibly putting myself at risk. They might feel that all of those guidelines and like protocols can protect them as best they can, because that's all anyone can do. It's as best as you can. Unless you're in a bubble, you have to go home and you have to do regular life stuff. But, how many people under that feel like it's not enough, or just feel like it's everything that they can do and I still don't want to go back? And how does that work? Like, how much are you sacrificing, or how much risk are you putting on yourself by, maybe standing up for something that you feel like it's just not right? I'm just not okay with it.
Yeah.
What risk does that put you in? I'm not sure. But it's a lot of stuff, and a lot of people will just get bundled into it. So it's like, we agree that it's fine. We're 3 or 4 people underneath there. Like, no, I don't. Mm-hmm. But there's not really much that they can do other than speak on their own literal singular behalf. Like, the union may say yes, or my group may say yes, but I personally choose not to for whatever reason. And that I feel like that should be okay. It's just, I don't know if that's the case in every situation.
I feel like the unions are really going to step in here to show their worth. Whether,
sure.
I mean, unions right now are the hot topic. We're talking about police reform and other things. Like, unions really hold the keys to the castle. And if one of their members feels away, like, they're going to bat for them. So I just hope that they can remember who they fight for and really help the industry, because before COVID, this industry is like very boom or bust. Mm-hmm. There are times where like Hollywood blockbusters employ a lot of people, comes to Toronto and like everyone's getting an extra job and everyone's on set,
Yeah.
And then there are times when there's nothing, like recently. And I can only imagine how that's affected just everyone down to the key grips on set all the way up to the directors and everybody else. Just their pocket, right? Like, you don't have that money. We're lucky in Canada where we've gotten the CERB and some other ways where people can keep paying their bills a little bit. But, this is an international thing. They're filming in the UK.
Yeah.
So it's even more out of our control, right? And this whole international local community that we live in, realistically, right? We're just a flight away from everybody. So I just hope it doesn't help fester and create more cases of the virus by opening up too soon with something that's non-essential, like production.
Yeah, it's fascinating you mentioned that, John, because I know, according to this article, there's other UK-based blockbusters waiting for the green light, and some of these are big productions like the Batman, the new Fantastic Beasts movie, even Disney's Little Mermaid. Apparently James Cameron's like back in New Zealand right now, and he's trying to finish up.
Yeah, they're building a whole thing. Yeah.
Like, it's nuts, because as soon as someone decides to move forward, I think everyone else looks at what they're doing and they just almost look at them as being the guinea pig in all of this. And it's like, okay, well, we're going to follow suit right away. But yeah, I think definitely it's the scary part of it is potentially
being first.
Yeah,
I would say be first because if something goes wrong, and not even wrong, because it feels like, especially like if you look at the sports world, a lot of players and people are contracting COVID through however it feels like something that can happen. It doesn't feel like an anomaly anymore.
Yeah,
like the first guy that happens, we're all like, how dare you? What are you doing? How could this happen? And now we're like, oh, it's just there. Like it can happen no matter what you do. So it feels like it's a possibility. And so I wonder about that step. You have everything in place for, day to day, but what is your protocol if someone has it? How does that affect the rest? Like, does your daily testing and does your whatever, does that really help to mitigate, to make sure when one person has it, literally we've been able to contain it? Or do you have to shut down for 3 weeks and start all over again?
Yeah.
I don't know.
The good thing is the World Health Organization confirmed that there is no human to dinosaur transmission, so we're fine.
So the main characters in the movie, they're gonna be fine. So everything's gonna be great.
Well, considering the fact that Jurassic World is definitely a heavy CGI movie, you got to think that there's other CGI liberties you can take. And again, I don't think it's ideal, and it's probably going to end up costing a lot more if you decide to start CGI, actual humans in the movie. But yeah, I think it's this is going to be an interesting story to watch moving forward.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see.
Would you guys feel comfortable going back to work right now?
Not exactly.
Yeah.
But again, it depends on the means. Like right now I'm working from home because my mode of transportation is usually the GO Transit method. So on public transit, it's a little bit more wary. You're obviously around more people, so you're in closer confines. A lot of people have been, but my office is now open for just the tech team and stuff who've been driving in. So they feel comfortable because they're driving in or rollerblading or whatever. And they're configuring our office as we go to adopt the new protocols. Mm-hmm. So no one is sitting close together and all that other stuff. So that works. But in that realm of a bigger production, there's just so many bits. There's so many people that are supposed to be involved. I don't know how you maintain the suggested 6 feet. I know the masks are mandatory, so that has been shown to help significantly.
Yeah.
But it's just in my position right now, no, I don't. I'd prefer not to. But I'm also, that's easy for me to say maybe because I haven't been out of work in the time. So it's not I'm sure it feels much more urgent to somebody who's been out of work for 3 or 4 months and is now getting note that you can go back to work on this movie thing. You probably feel you look through it and you're like, oh, okay, that'll work. This is fine. I need to work.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know.
John, you're behind the camera usually. Would you have you actually no?
No, actually, I haven't shot anything in a very long time. I've been blessed to have a lot of contract gigs.
Yeah.
For editing. Yeah. So, during this time, I've been working from home, and a lot of the content that I've been working on is educational around training for COVID. Mm-hmm. So it's really taken over all industries, right? Work with some larger food companies where they've got to train their employees on procedures. All the stickers on the floor, acrylic screens, there's a big process around going back to work. It's funny because my office is opening officially on the 29th. So we're able to, my boss has said, do you want to go back? Would you want to go back? And I'm, given the circumstances of having a child, and Nav, I'm sure you can relate,
for sure.
Mitigating that risk, right? Not trying to go out as much as possible, not trying to bring anything that might harm your family. But I think also, by the end of June, the 29th or so, when I'm supposed to be going back into an office, those procedures that Akilah, you mentioned, the making sure people are sitting farther away from each other, having stations for hand sanitizer, whatever that might translate into, organizations are really coming together to make their employees feel safe.
Yep.
So I'm happy.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I'm happy to be able to feel quote unquote normal working and doing the things that we need to do. But we can't take this lightly. I mean, we cannot underestimate the second wave of what coronavirus could be.
That's what
we cannot. Look, if anyone knows anything about history, if you look at the Spanish flu, 1917, 1918, the second wave was like 75%
infinitely worse. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that's where the numbers came in with, and if we compare it to SARS, H1N1, COVID, like Spanish flu was devastating to the world. Mm-hmm. And I think this is the only thing that's been as close to that since. So to ignore this second wave that could potentially be coming would be foolish.
For sure.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. I wonder, like, if people are trying to squeeze things in before whatever. I don't know how they determine when said second wave is like officially starting. So I just wonder if people are trying to like edge themselves in, get as much in before having to possibly shut down all over again.
Especially in the US.
Yeah. Or I don't know if any of these protocols and things like that, like, I would think that even with all of that, if there is said second wave, you're still going to have to shut everything down all over again. So we're going to do the whole thing all over again. So I just wonder.
It's like a dress rehearsal.
Yeah, essentially. It feels like we did it. This is what it'll look like. Do what you want in the middle. Please be safe. Please be careful. But look forward to the fact that we might have to do this all over again.
Yeah.
And I think that like, to his point, like, to not take it lightly, like, even with things opening up and things like this, like you're going back to work and whatever, like, don't ignore the fact of why you weren't at work to begin with. Yeah. Like, please note the fact that, yes, if you're going back to work, you need to take said protocols and adhere to the sanitizers and the masks. And if you don't feel like your place at work has these things in order or like isn't up to what you feel comfortable with, say something so that like everyone can do the best they can in hopes that like we stave off said second wave, because it feels like it's going to happen. So maybe we should just be aware, be ready, but also apparently squeeze everything in, because it just feels like everyone's trying to get in there real quick. Because I feel like it feels like it doesn't, like Jawn said, like this isn't like, this isn't an essential service. Like this doesn't need to happen. But if you feel like you have everything in place and you only have, because I think they said that like they already started shooting, so they only have, let's say half of their work left. A lot of the larger populated scenes have already been done, so it's going to be a lot less people. So you really want to like go, because after that you can do all of the edits and stuff and be as distant as you want. Because I mean, that's how they did. I'm pretty sure that's how they did The Last Dance recently. Like a lot of that was done from home. So you just want to have your materials so that you can do distanced as long as you want, because that's what we did. We had a lot of stuff already shot, so we were able to do a lot of the edits because you just do it at your house.
Exactly.
Send it out, do whatever, but you need the footage to be able to do that. So I think a lot of places are just trying to get content, get footage, get materials. And then, God forbid, if we're in that situation, at least we have something we can work with in that meantime and not be completely at zero. Like be completely.
No, I think that's the issue. I think people's content or people in general, like their work streams are just drying up. So it's how do we use that small window, to your point, Akilah, and just get what we need to get and just run with it. And I'm also curious to see what kind of innovation we'll see. Like I think, again, you're talking about these big CGI productions. Like again, I think you look at The Irishman as an example. I was just going to say that. There was some major CGI in that movie, and to me, I think it was done it was fantastic. Like it was, they did a phenomenal job, and I do think that there should be more of that thinking applied. Especially if you look at sort of the situation being in a long haul, I think it's important. But
they're just going to have to budget for such, because that stuff isn't.
It's not cheap.
So. Like, you want to have your, like, I just kept thinking of, one of those scenes in Game of Thrones where there's like 300 people just milling around and like 200, you know what I mean? Like, you're going to have to go with maybe like 80 people and then like fill it in the middle and like everybody spread out, do you know what I mean? And like, just triple that up. I think that's some of the stuff that's probably going to happen, especially the near future until whatever. And like you said, I think people are going to have to get relatively creative to like include it in your budget so that you're aware of it, so that you can probably plan ahead for it for ones that haven't started. Sure. But like the ones that are finishing up, I know that I think The Rock and like Gal Gadot were doing a movie in like Italy that they had to shut down, obviously. So I wonder how that, like where they are with that and how that's going to play, and are they going to be in that position to have to do stuff like this? And so a lot of those are going to be over budget for a bit while we finish them up. But yeah, I feel like there's going to be a lot of that, which doesn't suck too much, but I just, it's in the middle, because sometimes I'm like, I don't even notice who cares, and I'm like, oh man, like that's not what I thought was going to be there, but whatever.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, we'll definitely keep tabs on this situation for sure. But yeah, it'll be fascinating moving forward to seeing what the movie industry, or even just what the content industry looks like as we progress into this pandemic, and hopefully come out of it soon and see some normalcy, whatever that means. But I want to thank the both of you for joining me here on New Theory Radio this week. Two amazing conversations when it comes to Drake's legacy, as well as sort of the future of movie productions. Would love for you guys to let the listeners know where they can contact you or learn more about what you're doing. And Jawn, let's begin with you, because you're living the dad life, man. How do we keep tabs on that?
Hey, happy Father's Day to you, man.
Yeah, you too, man. Happy Father's
to both of you.
This is my first Father's Day, and one of the first Father's Day I've actually recognized in a long time. I haven't had a lot of dad figures in my life, so it's nice to like carry the torch instead of just ignoring it. But yeah, I mean, in terms of what I'm up to lately, like I mentioned before, editing is a big part of my life. I wouldn't say started. I'm probably about 60 to 70% done a documentary that I've been screening and showing some people and trying to flesh out a little bit more, which is about freestyle rap. It's called Freestyle Now. That's the name of the documentary. And honestly, I'm kind of like on the fence whether or not I take the next steps with like a Kickstarter to help finish it. Because we're just in post-production now. There's no more filming that I would need to do for it. So that's a big piece. I mean, that's the first 40 Ounce Heroes original larger piece of content that we've ever produced as a team. So I'm really proud of it. I mean, we've got people like your boy Noise is in there. Who's an amazing rapper. We've got a bunch of Canadian artists as well as US artists in there. And that's kind of just inspiring me to do more as a musician as well, right? Like I started the film as a way to understand freestyle. I could never do it. And I was like this writer, this poet, and I was always trying to write stuff. And to be able to just come off the top and rap in whatever way possible, words that maybe someone just gives you in the moment, right? Like there's such a power in that. So for me, that's kind of me bringing the world of hip hop and production together to create my own intellectual property. Apart from that, I mean, I'm going to be checking out events, trying to help artists. I've learned a lot over my 10 plus years in the industry as a recording artist. So I'm hoping to pass down some of that to some other artists that I've been able to meet through 40 Ounce Heroes, through some of the ciphers we've done or some interviews or concerts. So artists are coming to me as like a consultant in a way. What would you do here? How would you release this? What platforms? So it's really fulfilling for me to be able to step back and be able to be a support system for new artists coming up and innovative ideas that are coming out of them.
Amazing, man. Well, hey, when that documentary is done, give us a shout, man. We'll get you back on.
For sure, bro. We'll do a little stream party.
40 Ounce crew, man. And we'll do a New Theory stream party, and we'll definitely talk more about it, because I know you've been working on that one for a while, and I'm glad that it's almost complete. Akilah, what about you? What's the best way to connect? And I'm assuming it's either a Monday or Friday night while you're watching Raw or SmackDown.
Oh boy, literally. Oh man. Yeah, no, I mean, I'm around during those times. Sometimes on Wednesday. Yeah, no, I just, I'm on Instagram. You got that email. We're not really doing much anything right now because we've got, History Channel. If you want to check out American Pickers, go for it. The name pops up at the end.
Sweet.
Yeah, no, not much right now. Everything's just kind of in a holding pattern, as we just discussed, as I wait patiently for all of the protocols to come into play and or new rules. I don't got as much going on because I have to wait for materials, and we don't have any.
Would that be hashtag phase 2 or phase 3?
I think we were legit. I think we were phase 1 and we were like, are you sure about that? Well, I want to change that number.
Well, stay safe because we don't want you to fall victim. So
no, I'll be fine. Turned my dining room into my office. It's great. Amazing. Well, I want to thank the both of you for joining me. This has been an awesome chat. Again, it's Akilah Prendes and Jawn Taboika. We will put all of their contact information in the podcast description when this is out on Tuesday. But yes, thank you both for joining us on the pop culture panel this week. Thank you for having me.
Anytime. And both of you guys are welcome anytime to come back because this was a fun conversation. So we are going to take a quick commercial break and then we'll have more New Theory Radio here live on News Talk, Saga 960 AM. In just a few moments.
You are listening to New Theory Radio, NTR Spotlight.
I was hoping you'd come to me.
And we are back here on New Theory Radio, here live on News Talk, Saga 960 AM. My name is Nav Nanwa. I am your host, and this is the show where we theorize on all things arts and pop culture. It is about that time for our NTR Spotlight each and every week where we profile an artist or an organization truly moving the arts and culture scene forward here locally and as well as globally. And joining me right now is someone who is a Toronto-born singer who's actually been singing long before she could even remember. She actually started off working a full-time job after high school, but then she had a friend that encouraged her to get involved in talent showcases where she got discovered and where she was able to really go on a trajectory when it came to putting together some really awesome R&B. She has a brand new album out called Love Hard, which I've actually been listening to quite regularly. I must say it's fantastic. And I'm very honored to have her here on New Theory Radio. It is Nova Lush here joining us.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. This is awesome.
I must say, Love Hard's a fantastic album. I've truly been enjoying it. And we were just talking about it off air. If you ask me right now, it almost feels like a bit of an R&B renaissance or resurgence. And I say that because the R&B that we're hearing right now is very reminiscent to like the golden age of R&B from the early 90s. And I definitely get that vibe from you. And I see you nodding your head, very appreciative.
Yes, I'm a 90s baby. And
you describe yourself as a 90s R&B soul child.
I am because it's strange. Although I grew up on early 2000s music, I always gravitated towards 90s music, 90s R&B sound.
Was that because of your siblings or your friends, or even your parents, or what?
My dad is a DJ, so in that time of the 90s, that's when he was DJing. So he had vinyls stacks, library stacks, in the basement. You go down and you're a little library of vinyls. It was sick.
That is awesome. Who were some of your favorites growing up?
Okay, so New Edition.
Oh, you're going all the way back.
Oh yeah, I love New Edition. I love Jodeci. I love 112. I love Tamia, but Tamia's a little bit more later. If we're gonna go into hip hop, between Biggie and Tupac, I loved Biggie to dance to, but I liked Tupac to listen to, if that makes sense.
I've always been a Biggie guy. I love what Tupac has done for the culture, but I don't know why. East Coast has always just resonated with me.
I see. Okay.
That's amazing though. Those are some really big artists that someone like you growing up, I'm assuming you're a 90s child, like you're born in the 90s, right?
93.
You know, so there you go. So early 90s, some of the songs that you probably listened to were probably way before you were even born. And it's interesting you mentioned that, because it all kind of makes sense to you when you listen to your album Love Hard. It's very... It's just like I hear a little glimpse of old school R&B. I hear a little glimpse of neo soul, and it does a fantastic job in really taking the listener on a journey. But before we even talk about the album, let's start all the way back. You mentioned your dad was a DJ. How did you get your start in music?
So I actually didn't start with my voice. I started with instruments. So I started playing the violin at about 10. And then I also played the steel pan as well.
Nice.
And throughout playing those instruments, I fell in love with music in a different way, in a more classical form. And like structuring my music. And at the same time, I was also writing poetry. So adding those two together, learning the actual dynamics of a classical piece, learning how to make music, make composition of sound, along with me writing poetry, ended up turning into songwriting. And essentially, you know, over time, because I ended up joining my school choir when I was just a few years after that. So like 14. But all throughout high school, I was in choir and in my church choir. So yeah, that was great. Amazing.
Is that where you truly discovered your voice?
Voice definitely through school. Just because during like concerts and things, you know, you were able to really get recognition. Like I sang always. When I was a kid, like, you know, I sang, my mom was annoyed, like she'd always tell me to shut up, but like it was never a thing for me. Like singing was just a knack, right? But I never actually took it seriously. So when I actually stood up there with other women, it was like, and seeing the audience, I think that's what did it most. Seeing the audience and the impact that my voice did to the audience. And I was just like, I need to do this. Like, and I felt it on a different level. Like when I was playing the violin, I just didn't feel it as much. It didn't feel like it was coming from my soul. Some people feel that when it comes to the violin. I didn't feel that. So when I was able to touch the audience with my voice, it turned my world around.
You know, just reading your bio, it sounds like you were a part of the choir, and then you were doing that probably all throughout high school, and then it sounds like you took a bit of a break when you started working full time. But then I mentioned earlier you had a friend that encouraged you to kind of get back into things, and that's pretty much what's led you to here. How was that rediscovery phase for you?
Okay, so shout out to Cecilia Richards. So she is a singer, and
is she the friend?
Honestly, we're not really not saying we're not talking. You know, when you're just like some time just goes by, but like if you were to like message them right now, like they'll be like, oh yeah, what's up? It's you know, you're both busy, you're always doing something, you're always on the go, right? But we're always cool, you know, she's doing her thing, but I really give her huge props because, you know, she's the one who told me, hey, you know, let's do this showcase, you know, I'll go and perform my thing and you should set up and perform as well. And I think it started more as me kind of helping her for confidence, to be like, okay, like, you know, let's both do it. And we were both giving each other encouragement. And, you know, she was doing the same for me. So I feel like it was just us being a helping hand to each other. And then when I finally was able to put my songwriting and my music into play and to perform my own sound, I was over the moon. It didn't matter whether it was 20 people in the room or 100 people in the room. When I heard that applause, that's all I needed. Like, music is my soul.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really that gratitude, right? Like when you get that gratitude from an audience, and it further reassures talent that you have.
I also feel like performing is kind of like another aspect to completing that package, because, you know, as an artist, you know, everyone has their weakness, whether it be songwriting, whether it be beat selection, whether it be you know, maybe hitting a certain note, maybe going a different, you know, range. Maybe it could be anything, but sometimes it is performing. And for me, I think you just need to have that to be a complete packaged artist. So being able to already have that and be able to be comfortable with that, I'm like, okay, like, you know, I'm ready to go in the ring, you know, like, let's do this.
Well, yeah, it builds confidence, right? And I think that's key. And I'd love to understand how you were able to craft your sound, because I mentioned earlier, it's very reminiscent of old school R&B, very, very neo soul. When you were writing songs, when you were doing these talent showcases, did it all just happen organically, or was it something that you knew you wanted to pursue?
So when I was first starting, I was doing covers. I didn't have my own true music yet. I had written pieces, but I had never recorded anything. Everything was just loose scripts. So at that point, I was like, okay, let me learn some covers. And current music at that time, this was like before Daniel Caesar. So we didn't have those people, you know what I'm saying? We didn't have those artists that gave us that love yet. So I had to try to find music that did. So I did a lot of Tamia covers. I did a lot of TLC covers. You know, I had to go back and like dig to stuff that I used to listen to. So when it came to creating my own music, I was like, nah, like I need that vibe again. What I feel on stage while I'm performing their stuff. Yeah. So, so I think it all started with just covering what I thought was the best of the best.
That's awesome, because I think it's very easy to get hung up with what's popular. And again, you know, thinking about your journey and thinking about you coming out of high school, which, you know, is fairly recent, you know, I would say within the last 10 years, the music game has changed quite a bit in the last 10 years. Like Drake's Thank Me Later album came out 10 years ago, and till this day, he was getting knocked for singing on hip hop records, right? Like R&B was still considered, I guess, I don't know, like R&B was considered soft in a way. Like it wasn't totally accepted. And I think, you know, as time progresses, R&B has become even bigger than it has been in general. But yeah, it's fascinating to see that you kind of carved your own path, and you didn't let what was popular really influence you.
Yeah, no, I couldn't do that. No, like I would feel like a fraud, you know? Like you want to be able to feel comfortable on stage, and to do that. And I always say that because even when I'm recording music, I picture my audience or whoever's listening to my music. Like, what is going to be the reaction when I say this note? So I don't want to be in a place where I'm even singing lyrical content that's not true to myself, because it just wouldn't feel right. Because it would feel like I'm lying to my audience. It wouldn't feel right.
Yeah, especially when you think about the autotune era and all of that. Like it's you know, Jay-Z literally came out with a track called DOA and just killed that, right? Yeah. and I think that's, some people actually felt that was like a mockery that was being made of like R&B music, because anybody who normally doesn't sing can just throw autotune on their voice and all of a sudden have a melody, right?
Right.
So no, it's good that you stayed true to yourself. what I found fascinating about your career, Nova, is that your track "Crush" went viral in the Ukraine recently.
I know,
and it's fascinating because you're definitely a Toronto gal. You're someone that really lives and breathes the city. Even when you look at your resume, you performed at like pretty much all the major venues within Toronto. How did that feel, and how did that come about? Was that something you just put online? All of a sudden, you heard that the people from the Ukraine started hitting you up, and you started to realize that this track was blowing up.
So, I have actually when I first put out my first single, I was like, I am not gonna be, and this was when "Take It Off" first came out. I said, I'm not gonna be that artist that puts out a song that I put so much work into, and it be a dead track. That was the last thing I wanted. So the first thing I started doing was creating and compiling a list of radio stations, and Googled radio stations across the platform, across what I could find. There was also a place called Submit Hub. So I don't know if any artists know that. But there's Submit Hub where you can submit your music, and then it could also go to bloggers, influencers, people across the planet. So
nice. Wow.
It's definitely a good platform and a good way to make sure that you're not only, because you have to understand that there's going to be people that might find your music, just like right now. Apparently, Ukraine loves my crap. If I have to go to Ukraine and pop off in Ukraine and like show my love in Ukraine, I'm gonna do that. You know what I mean? But
honestly,
I'm not gonna stop my music from going to Ukraine and wait to get popular in Toronto.
Yeah.
You know?
I feel like a lot of people do get caught up in trying to blow up locally, or even blow up in America, but they don't think about areas outside. And recently, you've seen a lot of artists, especially with the drill scene in New York, being very influenced by the UK and what they've been doing. You've been starting to see people expand their horizons a little bit and really think about areas outside of where they live. But no, I love that. I love that you took the initiative to research ways to get your music not just played locally, but everywhere.
Yeah.
And it's also, I feel like I wouldn't be doing you justice if I didn't talk about the fact that, your record label, you're signed to yourself, which I thought was awesome. But
thank you.
But you're also using your platform to kind of put other artists on at the same time. How important is that control to you? Like having that control with your career, but also being able to be a resource to some of your peers.
Okay. You see how I had it like a huge break from high school to actually starting and developing my career? I'm 27 now. So I released my first track a year and a bit ago. So if you think of like Dylan Sinclair, for example, he's 18 years old. If he needed any help, I hope that he would get a helping hand at that point in life at 18 rather than getting a helping hand at 26 or 25. Let him have a chance at his career or her career when they're young, and they can kind of have a better grasp at things. I always feel, for some reason, for me, I did start too late. I know that a part of it is the reason why I'm so confident is because I'm so hungry for it. But knowing that I can be there for young artists now and like give them a helping hand, and I don't do this for any charge. I'm here to truly be a helping hand and to be an advisor. And definitely just someone to just be of help, because someone was there for me, right? When I needed it, when I needed to spread my wings. So I feel like this is my way of giving him back.
Yeah. And well, the one thing I'll say too is, I feel like, and again, if you ask me, because I'm way older than you, like you're still very young.
Thank you.
But I also feel that, you know, you're proof that, you know, age is really a number, and I think everyone has that sweet spot in regards to when they're truly ready for that next big opportunity, and I, you know, I think if it needs to come with maturity or a little bit of wisdom, and you need to kind of put some years under your belt to be able to realize things a bit better for yourself versus it happening very early on and then just getting overwhelmed and not knowing what to do. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Yes, I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with it.
Mm-hmm.
Although I think for how long I've been fighting for what I wanted, it would have been nice for options like mine to have been, you know, to have been available. You know?
Yeah.
So
Totally.
you know, and like there's a bunch of platforms out there that are completely free, like Rise, Golden Mic Thursdays, places to perform dark room sessions. These are platforms all across Toronto that are completely, you know, and they're for the artists. So, you know, just we got to keep helping each other, you know, and you know, be able to create platforms and content for artists. And being an artist, it helps because I know what the artist wants and what the artist needs. So
yeah. No, it's good. It's good. And considering that the world right now, in some ways, I almost feel like all eyes are on Toronto when you think about, you know, the top 50 albums that came out this year. Chances are a fifth of those are from Toronto or GTA-based artists, right? Like, you think about Drake, you think about The Weeknd, you think about Tory, you think about Jesse Reyes, right? Like, you're thinking about all these artists that are from our areas that are just doing fantastic from a global standpoint, yet they're all from within the same communities too, right? Which is crucial.
Yes. And it's great to see so much growth here. Although it seems like it is quite difficult for a Toronto artist to get noticed in Toronto.
Totally.
That's like how we were saying. Like, my single Crush blew up in the Ukraine, but one of my other singles, Better, was like amazing in Atlanta. And when I went to Atlanta, like, people loved my sound. I was able to perform there and I got a standing ovation. People in Toronto, they clap and, you know, it's cool and all, but like, they won't like give you that love that like the States does. It's crazy. There's just a different, they're more patriotical when it comes to anything that they go out for and leave their house for, you know? Like, I don't know, man. I really want to move there. That's another thing. I really want to move to Atlanta, just not while a certain man is in power.
Well, going back to your Toronto point, why do you think that is?
I just don't, and I think that comes from why I believe in supporting other artists right now. It's because there isn't much support for artists. And when I mean support, I mean even the simple reposting of someone's album or of someone's concert or of someone's, people are too cool. You know, yes, you know, your friend posted something, okay, I'll go to it, but will they repost it? Will they invite the other friends to come too? And I feel like that is the culture that they have in the States. Someone will hear something, oh, like, you know, there's a local show. Cool, all right, I'll invite like 3 of my friends. They do that. I don't feel like there's enough of that in Toronto. People are very cliquey. They like what they like in their small groups. and they don't know how to network properly. That's yeah.
Well, that is something that I've heard like a lot from different people, and I'm glad you're using the U.S. as an example, because I remember going to Austin, Texas a few years ago for South by Southwest with a buddy of mine, with buddies of mine that were performing, and I was able to talk to artists from North Carolina and Atlanta and even Iowa, like these areas that obviously very dense with people, but there was so much pride. Like they were almost hometown heroes for their cities.
Yes.
And these weren't people that had major label backing, right? They were people that put in work, were probably out there grinding, networking, doing every single show possible, probably going down the same route that you're going down right now when it comes to helping other artists and creating a community so that everyone can help rely on each other.
Right.
And I don't know what, is it a scenario in places like Toronto where maybe the market's too small that it can get a little political? Like, I don't know.
I think it's just a vibe. Like there is a weird Toronto vibe. Like even like I know some artists, like top artists that come and perform in Toronto, and they come and perform in Montreal, for example, and it's still within Canada, and the audience gives the artists more of a reason to perform. They have more hype. Like the audience, it's the vibe that the audience carries. I think it's this too cool. It's this too cool vibe. I don't like it.
We're too spoiled. That's why.
It's a lot. It's a privilege. Oh, like, yeah, that was cool. Like, I remember this one time when I performed and like people were clapping, and then this girl came up to me after I performed and she was like, "That was the most like amazing song I've heard, da 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 da, like, can I get your stuff?" And I remember seeing her when I was on stage and she didn't even applaud.
Oh my God. Wow.
So it's like, I don't understand what goes on. And I don't understand what goes on in the Toronto mentality. It's like, okay, you like the music, but you don't give that support as an audience. Like, I love the energy. Like, the audience energy is important to me.
Yeah.
I don't know how much more I could explain that. Like, it's
But let's switch gears and let's talk about Love Hard. I told you that I've been listening to it. I think it's phenomenal. Again, I'm a big R&B guy, and I think it's amazing. And I urge everyone to go check it out on Spotify and everywhere else. What was the inspiration and how did it come about?
So, Love Hard is kind of like my diary. When I go back and if I were to compare my album to anyone's album, it would be Alicia Keys' diary.
Wow. Classic album, by the way.
Oh yeah. And it's literally because it's my true raw feelings. Like the song Navy Blue is my apology to somebody. The song Better is when I literally met someone that truly brought me out of a horrible time and was just able to make me so much better. And every time I was with them, they made me like not better, just like made me feel better, but they actually were able to develop me to be a better person. So every song definitely has a personal experience in there. So that it's chapters of my life, and I continue to write that way. I'm constantly making new sounds now, and definitely just finding new ways, finding new ways to write, and finding new ways to discover myself, so that I can create new chapters and continue to develop. So. Yeah.
So sounds very therapeutic.
Yes, very, very.
Mm-hmm. What was what was that? Sorry.
What's your favorite song?
Oh, Better is an awesome track. Better is, I like that one a lot. I think it's a true standout, and again, I think it really shows your depth as an artist too. So that's one that I was going through a lot. Like I was playing a lot as I was kind of going through the album this week, and I think it's a standout for sure. But it's a very cohesive project. Like I admittedly, and I'm not just saying that because I'm interviewing you, but there weren't a lot of skips. Like it was just something you just kind of leave on and you kind of just vibe with it. Was that the goal? You're putting it together.
That was definitely the goal. That was definitely the goal. And it was originally before branching off to find a new videographer. Mm-hmm. I was originally setting up for an entire, basically like movie setup. So a full sound storyboard. It was crazy. I don't know what he was going with it, but it was going to be my entire album.
You told me you're trying to create your own lemonade. Is that what you were saying, or what?
Something of the sort. But it was definitely going to be my story come to life. So
yeah.
But now we're on to new things, different things, especially since COVID came to effect. So
you were telling me. You're telling me that you've been putting in work. You're not using this time to just sit around.
No.
Elaborate on that. What have you been up to?
So within this time has been my time to develop the playlist curation and the collaboration with the CJRU Radio 1280 AM. Shout out to them.
Awesome.
So that all started within the COVID time. So that's been keeping me crazy busy, keeping me on top of the artists, whether they have been scouted through me or have just come across my way and wanted to come and, submit their music. So that's just been a lot. But on top of that, also continuing to create my own sound still. I'm working towards the next album. Excited for that.
Is that a 2021 release or what?
Next year, yep.
Okay.
And I will most likely release it on the same day that I released the one from this year, May 23rd for next year. So
nice. I like that consistency. Just to kind of close this interview out, I do have to mention that you've been a fantastic advocate and someone who's been truly using their voice right now with everything that's been going on in the world. How important is that for you? And is there any advice that you'd want to give to anyone who's either trying to learn more to become better, and this is maybe for non-POCs, but also for POCs in across all waves of color? What can they be doing more to really bring awareness to what's going on?
So for POCs themselves, in terms of the ones that already know the history, I would definitely just encourage them to definitely get more rooted in their family, definitely get more rooted in their other POC friends. I think it's very important to have a sense of community because we see so much strength in other communities and we don't see it within our own. So I find that we have to develop our communities. That's why there's so much push on, supporting Black-owned businesses, push on, making sure that we're supporting our community and our education system, push on making sure that we can develop different laws because there's so many things that are striked up against us. So coming together and unifying is very important for us. And that's just something I'm just going to touch on because that's just the tip of the iceberg and we don't have too much time and I can go about for hours.
No, but yeah, I definitely appreciate it.
But I will say, please, please petition, whether you're POC or not. Please petition as much as you can. In terms of anything regarding Regis, anything regarding laws going throughout with Breonna Taylor, going throughout with any of these supposed suicides, which were clearly lynchings.
Horrible.
We just have to continue to fight and be strong with each other and unify as POCs. Now, for non-POCs, we still love y'all. This is just a time for us to breathe. And it's not that we don't want to educate you, but it's almost as though you have to take this time to educate yourself. We have always sat in the classroom and learned about the history that was forced upon us. So now it's time for you to take that time to learn the history on your own. I take time to learn about the Holocaust. I take time to learn about, certain injustices around the world, like especially with Indian women, even with going on with Yemen right now. It's just taking that time to do research on things that you care about, right? You care about Black music, you care about Black sports, you care about all of these other things. So make sure you just care about the history that they have behind them, just like we do you.
I wanted to commend you again for using your platform to speak up and really to entice conversation, because we need more of that, and we need more of that locally. So thank you for that, and thank you for Love Hard. And if anybody wants to check out the album, what's the best way?
Honestly, on all platforms right now. Spotify, SoundCloud, Apple Music, anything you should be able to plug into, Tidal, Napster, Pandora, anyway. I don't know how you listen to your things, but yeah. Some people listen to their stuff through TikTok. My stuff's on TikTok. You can figure it out.
Nice. You're all over the place. I love it. Thanks so much for coming on New Theory Radio. Really appreciate it. We'll definitely keep tabs on what you're working on, and we'll bring you back so you can put more people on blast.
It's been great. Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. That's Nova Lush. We are going to take a quick commercial break, and then we'll come back with more New Theory Radio here live on News Talk, Saga 960 AM.
Of this feeling that I'm feeling. Supposed to move on when I'm crashing over you. How do I move on? How do I move on when I'm crashing over you? They say love comes when it's meant to be. When it's meant to be.
You are listening to New Theory Radio.
Welcome back to New Theory Radio, here live on News Talk, Saga 960 AM. My name is Nav Nanwa, and I am your host. And this is the show where we theorize on all things arts and pop culture. Special thank you to my pop culture panel, Jawn, Taboika, and Akilah Prendes for joining me to talk about Drake's album, Thank Me Later, 10 years later, as well as movie production starting up again amidst this pandemic. As well, special thanks to our NTR Spotlight for this week, Nova Lush, for joining me to talk about her music as well as her album, Love Hard. Go check it out across all streaming platforms as it is truly phenomenal. And this is a wrap for this week's edition of the show. So big thank you for all of you for listening in. A happy Father's Day to you and yours. This is actually my first Father's Day, so I'm definitely going to enjoy it. But if you want to connect with New Theory Radio, it's at New Theory Radio across all platforms. If you want to connect with me, it is at Nav Nanwa on Instagram and Twitter. Special shout outs to at Colorblind Photography _ my baby brother Amit Nanwa for holding down our graphics, as well as special thanks to Dusty Loops for all of the instrumentals, including our theme song, as well as a theme for the pop culture panel, as he is truly a producer extraordinaire. If you missed today's episode, it will be podcasted and released on Tuesday, so simply search New Theory Radio on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, as you can definitely find us on there. As well, it will be available on the Saga 960 AM website, which is saga960am.ca. Thanks again for tuning in, and you will hear all of us next time. Peace.
At T-Mobile, you don't have to choose between a great and we'll pay them off up to $450 each. Visit T-Mobile.com to find out how to save up to 50%.
Up to $450 via virtual prepaid card for eligible device payoff. Allow 15 days. Savings may vary. See T-Mobile.com.
Kaiser is off the chain. Everything is in one place for you. Your x-ray will be done there. The doctor will see you there. The labs are there for you. And then the nurses that work with you at Kaiser, they make you feel so at home. They're there to meet your needs. I would not be alive today if I had not had Kaiser Permanente. I feel really, really great knowing there's a place that I can go to make sure that I can maintain good health on a regular basis.
Every medical case is unique. Kaiser Foundation Health Plan, Midland Express 2101, East Jefferson Street, Rockville, Maryland 20852.